And welcome into Hockey Sense, everybody. How we doing today? Friday tradition. You know what that means. Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. Back with us, all podcast platforms. Looking forward to this week's show. Great numbers last week. We appreciate all the support with Blues GM Doug Armstrong with us. Always love catching up with Army, man. I could talk to Army all day long. We may have to do the Doug Armstrong show. See if he'll do a weekly show. And he probably wouldn't want to do that. But nonetheless, I know the fans love it, and I certainly do too. This week, no exception. We've got Blues chairman Tom Stillman with us live in studio, so we'll talk with him coming up in just a couple of minutes. I don't want to take too much time with the intro on this week's episode. I kind of want to get to Stillman as quick as possible because we do go for about 40 minutes or so. And then Jamal Mayers also joining us here later on in the show where we get into the Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. Everyone's talking about the Leafs right now. I don't even know what to think. I said this to Jamal, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I think a lot of things that Craig Berube thought about the Toronto Maple Leafs have probably been confirmed here in one season and certainly in this Stanley Cup playoff. But the series isn't over. Who knows what happens tonight? Tonight is Game 6 back in Florida, and we'll see if the Maple Leafs can force a Game 7 and what kind of performance they get from their best players. I would imagine you're going to see the Matthews and the Marners of the world, you would think, have a much different mentality and effort heading into Game 6, so we'll see how that plays out. Edmonton wastes no time with the Vegas Golden Knights, man. I give Edmonton all the credit in the world. Who would have thought they would have been a team that could win a 1-0 game in overtime, but they showed they could do that. If they could win low-scoring games in addition to having to turn it up when necessary, then they're going to be a difficult out the rest of the way. So they're halfway there. Can they get past Dallas or Winnipeg in the next round and get back to the Stanley Cup final for the second straight year? I think the answer is yes. I thought that was an important game for Dallas in Game 5 back in Winnipeg. They weren't able to win it. Give Connor Hellebuck all the credit in the world. He gets a shutout. Only faced 22 shots, but still they got the shutout. And I think he only faced 10 or 11 shots in the first two periods combined. So not a ton of work, but he made some really good saves in that game. I thought that was an important game for Dallas. They didn't get it done. And what that means moving forward now remains to be seen. Because listen, let's not forget, Dallas has never been a team that has proven that they can get it done in the playoffs either. They've had good teams. This is not the first year they've had a good team. They've had good teams many years in a row, and they've failed in the Stanley Cup playoffs. What will this mean for them as they head back home in Game 6? They're obviously in a great spot. They're up 3-2. They've got to win a home game. The last thing they want to do is try to go back to Winnipeg for Game 7 and do it on the road. That would be a tall task, considering what Winnipeg has shown who they are and how well they play on home ice. So that's where we're at. Carolina, big shout out to Carolina. Get past Washington. A little disappointed in Washington, although I felt this from Washington entering the playoffs. I didn't know what kind of performance everyone was going to see from the Capitals. I felt like they used so much energy during the course of the year, throughout the chase, all the excitement for the Grade 8 chase with Alexander Ovechkin chasing down the all-time goal-scoring record and passing Wayne Gretzky. It almost felt like once they did that, like that was their championship because that was the goal, to do it this year. And there was so much momentum and excitement pushing them towards getting there. Could they rediscover the same level of energy and go all the way in the Stanley Cup playoffs? And obviously the answer is no. They lose in 5 games to Carolina. So not much of a fight there at all, even though Game 5 was a good game, and Svechnikov scores late in the third period to give them the 2-1 lead. They end up getting the empty netter. They win the game 3-1 and win the series 4-1. Carolina, very unassuming team. I mean, just so unassuming. And they have great players up and down the lineup. They play with great structure. They play as a team, but don't underestimate the talent they have. They've got some really good players and a really good coach too. So they're back in the conference final, and who are they going to face? Florida? Is Toronto going to lose once again? Man, what are you going to do now? There's some big changes are coming, and maybe that means Brendan Shanahan will be on his way out. I think when people say big changes, that's what they're referring to, but they're obviously referring to Mitch Marner not being re-signed. They completely fumbled the ball there. They're going to get nothing from Mitch Marner. Maybe a draft pick if they give somebody negotiating rights, and they get draft pick compensation. Maybe they get a player in return. I don't know how that'll play out. John Tavares likely not coming back, although you just never know. But they changed captaincies, going from Tavares to Austin Matthews. Matthews taking a lot of heat right now in Toronto. And they changed the head coach, and still you're kind of seeing the same type of result and same type of performance from the core four. Can we stop calling it the core four? Listen, you need a core outside of your top players to win and to go all the way. It's been proven year after year after year. You need that, both offensively and defensively. You got to have a bottom six, and you got to have a strong group of defensemen who are capable of handling everything that gets thrown your way in the Stanley Cup playoffs and to truly go on a run. They've never been able to build the team the way that they need to in the playoffs. Regular season's a different story. First Community brings us the one and only Hockey Sense, which we do each and every week live from Half Coast Studios. Summer officially right around the corner. That means family vacation for lots of you, but of course you got to pay for it. And everything is more expensive right now. You try to go on a vacation, man, it is not cheap, but there's no reason to stay home. There is no reason to stay home. There is help that is out there. You just got to find it. And I'll tell you where to go find it. If you want to plan now and pay later, and play now and pay later, you can look into a vacation loan at First Community or consider the First Community Visa with a rate of just 7.9%, no annual fee. The average credit card rate, by the way, is 28%. This is 7.9%. I mean, it's crazy. So be careful using your credit card if it's 28%. You don't want to overuse it. But if you're really thinking ahead and you'll be open to a First Community Vacation Club account, ask about it. You can play now, go on vacation, then pay later. So this time next year, you'll have saved up for your vacation. It's a smart way to go. Learn more at firstcommunity.com. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Find the nearest location today. Many of the locations have drive-thrus, curbside pickup. Don't sleep on the paper goods. They got the best selection of beer, wine, and booze you'll find anywhere. Discounts on Blues game days, discounts on Cardinals game days. You gotta love the Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. The Wallace family, flat out getting it done once again. Nobody does it like the Wallace family. We love supporting local businesses, and there is no family that walks the walk more so than the Wallace family, who's taking our experience living in St. Louis to the next level, one dirt cheap at a time. I love going to Dirt Cheap, man. They got everything. I mentioned the booze. They got cigars. But the paper goods, if you've got graduation parties coming up, any other type of barbecues and stuff like that, don't sleep on the paper goods and all the decorations and all that stuff you can find at Dirt Cheap. They're unbelievable. Dirt Cheap Fun. Cheap. Your one-stop party shop. Blue Note Roofing, our friends over there at Blue Note Roofing, David Novak, he'll be back with us in the studio maybe as soon as next week. I got to get David back in here. We'll talk about summer storms, talk about the off-season plans for the Blues, gutters, soffit, fascia, whatever it is you're looking for. Roofing, obviously. Siding. Nobody does it like Blue Note Roofing. They're the best in the business. Look for that big yellow truck with the Blue Note on the side of it. 314-920-5713. 314-920-5713. Call Blue Note Roofing today. David Novak will take great care of you. You know that. Our friends over at Lordo's Diamonds, taking jewelry to the next level. One visit to Lordo's Diamonds at a time. Go say hi to Mike and Jimmy, Pat, the whole crew over there. Right there in the heart of Ladue, right next to Truffles. You can't miss it. Lordo's Diamonds, baby. LordosDiamonds.com. They've been in business for 70 years. So if you've got a $100,000 budget or a $500 budget, they're going to treat you exactly the same. Nobody does it better than Lordo's Diamonds, man. We love our friends over there. Mike and Jimmy, thank you for all you do and all the support we get from Lordo's Diamonds here on Hockey Sense. Longtime supporters here on Hockey Sense. All right, let's take a break. We'll come back with Tom Stillman, Blues chairman. Lots to get into with Tom. Looking forward to this conversation coming up next. I'm Andy Strickland. Aiden's in the house. We're at Half Coast Studios, brought to you by First Community. Don't go anywhere. All right, back here on Hockey Sense. Great to have the one and only Tom Stillman back with us, the chairman of the St. Louis Blues. How are you?
Good. How are you, Andy?
How long? I'm good. How long does it take you to get past the last game of the season, whether you make the playoffs or not. When do you start looking forward?
Does that assume I'm past?
No. I had a feeling maybe you weren't,
No, I am. I mean, obviously, when you think back about it again, it stings again. But I've, for the most part, moved on and focused on the many positives of the season.
Being a chairman or an owner versus being a fan, what's the difference, you think? Because fans have lived through it their entire life. Obviously, they've had the ups and downs, and of course, the celebration of winning the cup. But it's devastating for the fan. Can you relate still to the fan?
Oh yeah. I mean, I was, stunned, speechless. It's like I think my position, you still get all of that. The heartbreak, just the disbelief and everything. But at the same time, my job is to, go forward and look at the future and, assess, what we've accomplished during the year and then, work with Doug and others to move forward.
If you would have told me before the season that the Blues were going to make the playoffs, I would look at that as, being slightly ahead of schedule. I thought the team would be good. Army even actually mentioned to me privately before the season that he felt like maybe the team would be good enough to make the playoffs. So I know internally there was some thought that the team was probably good enough to get there. And I said several times when you did make the playoffs, even early in the first round and like waiting for the playoff series to begin, that I felt like the season was already a win by getting into the playoffs. But then how you lost, that's a tough loss, right? So can you still allow yourself to sit back and appreciate and celebrate how far the team came during the course of the regular season?
Yes, the answer is a definitive yes. You've got to be able to, put a box around that sting and look at everything else. And if you look at both the regular season, especially the second half, and the postseason, I just think we took a big leap forward in our retool or whatever you want to call it. I'm comfortable that we did that. It was, I mean, the way that the team culture changed, the way the team plays, the way they were playing for each other, all the the cultural change that Monty brought in, and with a lot of help from Braden Shen and the rest of the leadership is a huge change. Plus, the changes that the three big moves that Doug made, the offer sheets for Broberg and Holloway, bringing in Monty and bringing in Fowler, those were, you're lucky if you get one, really needle moving step like that in a season, and we had three. So I think we are, now further along in our retool, whatever, than we might have thought we would be.
Take me back to the summer with the offer sheets. How did you first learn about it? When was this first discussed? And what was your reaction? Were you confident this was going to happen? And I mean, I can't imagine you were overly familiar with the players, or you had to do some research like everybody else. Okay, Holloway and Fowler, or Holloway and Broberg, you watched them during the Stanley Cup playoffs. But when Army first brought this to your attention, what was your mindset on it?
Well, it's funny. It was at, I think it was a development camp, and just an aside between sessions or after the day's sessions, and met with Doug and I think Alex and a couple others. And, the initial inquiry from Doug was, we described just briefly what they're looking at. But first, are you comfortable doing this? I think the question is, do you want to be disliked at 40 governor's meetings?
Did you ask him that?
No.
Oh.
I mean, that was kind of kind of the background of the question. Do you want to? I said, I'm comfortable. Yes, we could do it. I didn't really get that was. And then the group, mainly Doug, laid out the thinking where it stood then, and from from that day on, there wasn't a day until it happened that I didn't think about it.
But you could have never imagined that the two players would have that type of impact as quickly as they did. Could you have?
No, I mean, I think our guys really thought these were really strong young players, but you didn't really imagine it would happen that quickly, that they'd have an impact, as soon as they, hit the ice. So that was a big home run.
How do you look at the league right now? From a owner's perspective, cap going up. You had the Four Nations. Next year is going to be an Olympic year. When you hear the cap going up, like, what's your initial reaction? I mean, some owners maybe are excited, some owners don't like it. Where do you stand on that?
I think overall the health of the league is fantastic. It's in great shape, and I think the Four Nations was everybody expected that'd be a good event, but not what it would be, and that really sets up the Olympics to promote not only the game but the league. We can actually use our mark. I mean, the NHL with the rings in some contexts this year. Beyond the overall, more mid-sized market like us, we have concerns about that cap. I mean, the cap is, and now it's been kind of released from the artificial restraints imposed on it during the COVID pandemic. And it's going to start rising a lot. And it is harder for, teams in a mid-sized market to keep up with, Toronto and the other teams that are pulling that cap up. So that's a matter of some concern, and how revenue sharing, whether that's going to be, how we're going to adjust that. And so there are some questions there, and, we're going to have to, redouble our efforts to find new revenue sources and build our revenue if we're going to stay up and remain competitive.
And without being specific, I mean, are there ways to do that? I mean, to find creative ways to generate revenue? I think in the past, it's always been like ticket sales, parking, concessions, and, you just look at it as the mainstream ways to generate revenue. I guess now there's different ways you can do so through media and whatnot, correct?
Yeah, that's, the simplest example is that in the old days, you had only so much space in the arena to hang a static sign. Right? Now we have, not only, signage, video signage that changes, but we can create assets, basically, by, our Blue Note Productions can create a series of content on, whatever it is, inside the Blues or something with the player. And that can be sponsored by, a company, local or otherwise. So there is greater flexibility, greater ability to create assets that can generate revenue.
Well, we've got the helmets and the jerseys sponsored now.
Yeah.
Let's get the pants sponsored. Let's get the skates sponsored,
Well, I tell you what,
where we headed,
the league should get more revenue from the equipment.
You wouldn't have a problem with that at all. Like,
no, I don't mean that. I don't mean putting signage on them, but we should be getting different, deals from the Bauers and the CCMs and all of the world. But that's another subject.
Yeah, you got me intrigued with that. See, you go down that road, you make me have 2 or 3 follow-ups, but we'll save that for later.
I mean, we have our president of business operations was once in that world of Nike. So
yeah, oh yeah. Talking about Chris Zimmerman. So you purchased the team, 2012 or 2013? When was it? 2012. What's changed the most, you think, since you took over, since you bought the team compared to where it is now? Is it a drastic change? Is it incremental change? I mean, is the entire body of the organization in a completely different spot than it was when you took over?
That's an interesting question. I'd say in one way, it's very similar, and in other ways, it's, I think, very different. In one way, I think it's similar, is it's still very much a family feel around the organization, and I think you can sense that, and others sense that, the players and well beyond the players in the organization. I think we have held on to that. I think the Solomon family established that, and it's continued, and it's kind of consistent with our market in the Midwest, and we're not overly corporate, and people are good to each other, and pull together. The way I think it's different is, as in any business, standards change, standards of the quality of your work and attention to detail and how quickly you do it and how well thought through it is. Um, I think our standards for how we do our work, what we produce, whether it's put up on the scoreboard, or how we analyze it's just a very different level of business practices, I think.
Have the Blues ever been more popular than they are now? I mean, you look at the attention the team received down the stretch and into the playoffs.
It's been tremendous. I don't know if that I can compare to, how do you compare it to the Brett Hull days, for example, but certainly it's tremendous right now. We're getting tremendous support and interest, and it's been great.
How important is it to you? You mentioned the family atmosphere, and you look at other organizations who have won in recent years, and you kind of see that, right? Detroit has a lot of former players who work with the organization. Chicago's in a little bit of a different situation because of the adversity they went through, but LA's got a lot of former players who work with the organization, teams who have won in the past, and you're transitioning now into Alexander Steen. How much of that thought process is about keeping it in-house and within the family? And
I actually didn't mean that as much as former players being within the organization. It's more about a feel within the organization, even totally separate from hockey or players, just within the business organization, within the hockey organization. People feel like once they've been here, even if they go on to a job someplace else, they're still kind of part of the family. But yeah, I mean, it is, that is enhanced when you have, like fan favorites as part of the organization in one respect or another, and especially one who played such a big role in the Cup win.
Yeah. How do you see the transition happening from Army to Steiner? It's interesting, Tom, because I had Army on last week. I know he's won the Cup obviously here, so you can't top that. But this may have been his best year as a general manager. When you just mentioned the 3 moves that they made to move the needle forward, he and I talked about that too, and he said the same thing that you just said. Like, you just don't typically have that happen 3 times in 1 year, and those are franchise-defining moves when you bring in a couple of players the age of Broberg and Holloway, and Fowler, just how he impacted the team,
and a coach. I mean,
and Jim Montgomery, who's obviously on top of his game right now. So, I mean, you're going to transition. How do you look at it? You're not transitioning away from Army as much as Alexander Steen's going to take on a bigger role, but Army's still going to be heavily involved, correct?
That's right. I mean, the plan we laid out is that there were these 2 years in which Alex is appointed heir as GM, not heir apparent. He is the heir in reality. He'll become GM, and Doug will become president. Now, if Alex were if it were Ken Holland taking that chair, then Doug wouldn't have much to do.
Correct.
Right? And it really probably wouldn't make sense to have Doug. Mm-hmm. But Alex is new, and he's still learning, and his learning process isn't going to stop at the end of 2 seasons. Yeah. Right. Before this, he was in Sweden and doing, so there's still a lot more to learn. And also the scope of the management duties of the president goes so far beyond, the day-to-day of the team, and the day-to-day working with the coach, and then possible transactions. And you get this, I see it as kind of a spectrum, team adjacent, and then as you move away, and on that far end is everything from, ultimately responsible for the charter plane. Somebody else, Richie's handling that directly, but, our equipment purchases, and then getting closer, scouting, pro scouting, amateur scouting, all that. And the way we're setting this up is Alex doesn't have to take all of that on day one, right? He can focus on more team adjacent and then move out from there over time and take on the other management tasks. And, Doug is under contract for 3 years while he does that. So you've got what I consider the best in the business, counseling on, even the team adjacent stuff for a while. I think, Alex is ultimately, he's going to be the guy who gets to make the decision on things. But, he's got Doug there to both counsel him on that stuff, handle the other stuff, and over time bring him into that.
And it's got to be comforting for you to have somebody in charge who is truly capable of handling everything, right? I mean, from your perspective, to have not every. Listen, there's just like head coaches and players. I mean, there's a top tier player, a top tier head coach. There's newer head coach. There's younger head coaches, coaches who haven't been as successful. And then you have your top tier of general managers. That's got to help you sleep at night when you have somebody of his caliber in charge of the hockey side.
Boy, does it ever. I mean, I just, tremendous trust. That doesn't mean we don't go, well, I don't know, what about this? What about that? But you've got the best. And also with Doug, you don't have to say, hey, have you been thinking about, oh God, I never thought. I mean, he's going all the time. He's always thinking. He's always, the next thing and the next thing after that is already percolating and moving forward.
Did you guys have a short list of guys to replace, not to replace Doug, but if you were going to do this structure and he was going to move up to president and have a general manager, was it always Steen, or was he always the guy, or did you guys think about a variety of different people?
We had some other internal considerations.
Okay.
To leave it there.
Were you considering taking over as general manager too?
Well, I'm sure that would have been ultimately the most successful, but in taking us down to the bottom of the league, yes, that would have been great.
So funny. Is the benefit from winning the Stanley Cup, do you still feel that today? Like, I was talking to Jamal about this before you came on, and some teams win and then they want to tear it down and they just want to you kind of lose again before you become competitive. You guys have been able to maintain a strong level of competitiveness. You missed the playoffs 2 years in a row. I mean, Tom, there's teams that miss 11 years in a row, and Detroit's just missed for the 9th year in a row after winning 4 Stanley Cups. How important is that for this market to, even if you miss, to feel like, hey, listen, we're not that far off and we're still competitive?
I think, and that's the decision we made, that is important in this market. I mean, to me, to try to do both at once, rebuild on the fly while remaining competitive, probably not remaining, a really strong contender to win a cup, but still being competitive and playing meaningful games. And, mainly we thought, we can do that, and that's the best way to come out the other end as a contending team. But also it's a consideration of the market. The fans don't want to go through that.
No.
And it's tougher on the business. There's no doubt about it. And it's not like we can just, wave away revenue in a small market. So, we did want to maintain that as well. But, in this case, we also think it's the best route to where we want to go.
Yeah, and you might not get a Jim Montgomery also if the team is not in contention.
Yeah, I mean, top guys like that, they want to come to a team that has prospects.
Did you feel like you were letting one get away when he took the Boston job, when he was here as an assistant?
No, because at the time, everything with Chief was going great, and and not that everything ever went badly with Chief. I love Chief. I mean, we all parted on great terms. But, all that was all in place. So what are you going to do? say, Monty, no, we got to keep you here. You've got a contract. We're going to hold you. You can't really do that in this league and then expect to attract talent. Hold somebody back from a head coach position.
But you knew you had a elite coach as an assistant.
He was a really good coach.
Yeah. And then he obviously proved that, got another chance in Boston, and he took off with it. What do you think you were getting at the time? And was it a no-brainer for you? And again, it's never been about Drew Bannister. I've talked to Drew several times, and I think he even understands that. It's just a matter of that was kind of a no-brainer, right? When somebody like him becomes available, you've got to jump on that.
I think, on an analytical basis, yes, but on a human basis, not necessarily. Drew was doing a fine job.
Yeah, he was.
I mean, we hired him knowing he wasn't an experienced coach, and he's going to be learning, and he was going to, he's going to get better, and suddenly you're pulling the rug out from somebody's dream and career. So it's not an immediate. It's something you got to be sensitive to be aware of. In the end, our job was and is to make the franchise better and stronger. And so we made that decision. But, there was, hand-wringing about that.
I'm not going to lie, when Monty got fired, I mean, it's the first thing that kind of pops into your mind is like, wow, I think I even sent him a text like, don't go very far or something like that.
Yeah.
Right when he got fired, hey, better days are ahead, because I know it's so tough when you lose your job, but you just kind of had a sense. I mean, some things just make sense. And this one kind of made sense, and it came to, I think that's how it can come together so quickly, right?
Yeah. If it would have been clearer if we were really struggling. I mean, we were kind of bumping along rather than, playing horribly. But certainly, I've been asked this, and I can't remember. I'm not sure if Doug called me the day that Monty was fired, which I think was a Wednesday, or first thing the next morning, but it was one of
the second after he was fired.
Yeah, the body was still warm.
Yeah. And it was, I mean, he obviously has been as advertised, right? What do you think the biggest impact he's made since he's come? Like, you like the way he interacts with the fans and his charisma, his confidence.
Yeah, but I think it's, the culture and, the culture of what it means to be a St. Louis Blue and playing for each other, playing for the team, not for yourself, and all those bromides, and it's all easy to say and everything. It's hard to get there. We got there in 2019, and I'm not comparing this team to the 2019 team.
Everybody else has, though.
Yeah. But maybe I've said this too many times really, but in high school or in college sports, you go rah, 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 and you can get there with a team. These are professional athletes, and they're, in a sense, they're their own business, and they got a lot at stake, and they've got families and everything. It's a tougher challenge to create a culture in which they're each playing for each other and taking care of each other and working for the team and blocking shots and maybe, not releasing too early to maybe get that breakaway, doing the right thing.
Not cheating, yeah.
Yeah, not cheating, not thinking about their points, but thinking about, the points in the standings. That's not easy to achieve in pro sports, and that's, he was able to do that. Again, give a huge amount of credit to Braden Shen, the alternates, and really everybody in that locker room.
What are you thinking at the trade deadline? How involved do you get yourself into decisions that are made at the trade deadline? And because Parayko gets hurt right before that, I think a lot of people, the feeling was that the sky is falling, ceiling's caving in. There goes the lost hope with Parayko going down. Nobody could have seen you guys reeling off 12 victories in a row after that.
Yeah.
I mean, which is just, it's remarkable to even think that even happened, that you guys were able to win that many games in a row and put yourself in that spot without your number one defenseman. At the deadline, are you what are your conversations like with Doug? Are you hoping that like, hey, give this team a chance to see what they can do, or do you have to listen to what's out there to see how you can improve the team moving forward?
It's a mix of all that. I mean, there is always the consideration, well, should have they have done enough that they deserve to, go forward or even get supplemented? Um, do you look ahead and think, well, it's unlikely, and for the long term, we might be better. So, and it's sort of, I mean, during the period leading up to the trade deadline and trade deadline, Doug and I are talking, several times a day. You know, so, and, that's, some of it's about internal, about our players, some of it, what's out there, what might be available, so it's just sort of a constant, ongoing conversation.
All right, so you've always been a hockey fan and playing men's league and pickup hockey and all that, but how has it changed how you watch NHL hockey, being an owner versus being a fan your whole life? Do you see the game differently? Do you watch the game with a different perspective?
I don't think, I don't know that being an owner has, I think, I came to this with, what I call familiarity with hockey. I'm an amateur, and not much more. And but I interact an awful lot with people who really know a lot. So I've learned more, and but I still have the very clear realization that they know, 30 years of experience more than I do. But from talking, hearing this, I look at different things now based on the things I, pick up over the years.
How do you look at the valuations of individual teams? Do you think those that are out there, those numbers are accurate? That the Blues are close to $1 billion franchise right now?
Um, it's interesting that well, answer number one is it's irrelevant because we're not selling.
No, I know, but people put these numbers out, and back in the day when they would have a very low number, I know previous ownership groups would be like, "This is not accurate. This is so wrong." I'm just curious how you look at these because Forbes puts out their list every year, right?
So I'll tell you how I look at it and how that's evolved. It used to be when those Forbes things would come out, I would see them and say, "Yeah, that's great," totally meaningless and pie in the sky. It's gotten so that now in that area, they are keeping track. Not only, you'll see these people who are trying to get you to do stuff and we're not doing it. You'll see what prices were paid recently for transactions and how much of a premium that was to the Forbes valuation or the other valuations. So I think we've gone from a situation in which you saw the Forbes as, well, that's overblown, that's stupid, where now we're seeing in the market that prices paid are above the Forbes valuations.
Yeah.
So what that means, I don't know. Now there are two others that are doing it, CNBC and I can't remember, and it's like they want to each outdo the other in the high. So at some point it gets kind of ridiculous.
We had Bill Daly on Camden Strick a few weeks ago, and we talked about that. I mean,
He's
just
a good guy, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he's the best, and just the cost of bringing in an expansion team nowadays is just through the roof. What's your view on expansion? It sounds like we could be adding more teams to the NHL. Would you be in favor of that?
Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. I think we can handle two more teams, and I think the league has shown in the last 2-3 that they've handled them well, given them the proper amount of assets so they can be competitive, but not overdoing, especially after everybody learned their lesson with Las Vegas. And so I think it'd be good for the league, especially at a time of increasing audiences and popularity and all that. And I can't say that our share of expansion fees wouldn't wouldn't help in our size market.
Yeah. Be nice. Roger Hacker over here, he'd be driving a new car maybe if you get living in a new house. No, it's amazing. And the popularity of the NHL nowadays is just skyrocketed. So I mean, it sounds like it's going to happen, and obviously it's going to be a healthy addition for a number of owners throughout the NHL, right?
Yeah, I mean that could, at a time when what we talked about earlier is happening with the salary cap really going up and it being tougher to keep up with that.
I'm sure the best decision you ever made was asking Mary to marry you, right? Whatever. But at the same time, getting involved in the ownership group here was St. Louis originally, and then becoming the majority owner and the chairman. I mean, how do you reflect on that decision to do this?
Well, I'm really happy I did. When I look back at it, it was kind of serendipity and not, I mean, really, okay. I get a call about joining the Towerbrook Check-Its group, and okay, maybe I'll do that. And it worked out, and as you know, that experience wasn't the best, but then when I decided that, when Towerbrook decided it was getting out and announced that, and I would, look into putting a group together. I mean, it wasn't like I made a decision, we're going to do this. I had about a 2% chance of working at the time.
Yeah.
So, and
They already had a purchase agreement with somebody else anyway at the time.
Well, not at the time.
Oh,
they did
later after that. Yeah,
they did everything possible not to sell it to the person who had invested with them, but it was. And also, I mean, I didn't really exactly see myself in the group of people who had the money to pull that off. It was, put it frankly, I mean, it was a real long shot, and it was a grueling 2-year process. You remember because we were talking in the background. So it worked out. But
so did Towerbrook call you out of the blue, or did you initiate the talks like, I'm interested in getting involved, or did that come out of nowhere? They just contacted you.
They were working with a law firm here, Brian Cave, and I talked to one of the senior guys there who knew that I was through my father-in-law, that I was a longtime hockey fan, and that might be, they were looking for a local partner, and they were looking for advice. Who might that be? Mm-hmm. And so I got contacted by him, on behalf of the Towerbrook Check-Its group.
You guys have won a cup. You've brought the All-Star game here. You've had 2 Winter Classics. 3 Winter Classics. Geez, yeah. Sometimes I forget about Minnesota all of a sudden, But yeah, 3 Winter Classics in how many years, right? I mean, in 8 years. And they all had to take on a different life of their own. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, the Minnesota one obviously was so cold, but the Chicago one was unbelievable, and nothing will top, I don't think, the one that you guys hosted here.
No.
But all the events you guys have had, league events, winning a Stanley Cup, is there anything that you want to do that you haven't done? You've renovated the building. I mean, what's next on the list?
We haven't won a cup twice.
Yeah,
I guess
that's the next one. Besides that,
4 other events. If we can, I mean, we can't hope to be at a Winter Classic again in the next few years.
You never know.
I'd love to be in another.
Wasn't Chicago in one like every year,
or even a stadium here? The league, Gary's been great to us. He, said he'd support us when we came in, and he has supported us all along. He really appreciates the value of local ownership. He thinks that's important, and has, followed through on his support. So, additional events now, I don't know that the draft will ever, I mean, now that it's remote, but there is that focus where the kids are and stuff. I don't know if that's so much of a great event anymore. It's not really, I didn't think it was before. So, I don't know what other events. I mean, we'd like to get some non-blues hockey events like the World Juniors.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We'll try that again. We'd love to stay in contention.
The Frozen Four was great.
Frozen Four, get that in, that would have to be several years before that could rotate back here, but they were very happy with. But, everything we do is focused on that one big silver award.
All right, and so and PWHL was here too, and you've had a lot of great events here in St. Louis. I was talking to David Perron the other day. I talked to Oshie, Eric Johnson. Like,
how are they doing?
And I mean, it seems like yesterday they were all coming into the organization.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And
they were the kids.
Oh my God!
And
and look at the careers they've all had.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They've all had unbelievable careers. They've all won Stanley Cups. And played over 1,000 games. Like it's absolutely
that was quite a time.
Yeah. And I will say this is the closest now that it's been with the Blues organization. I'm curious what we're going to say 15 years from now about this crop of players that are coming in now. You got a taste of Snuggerud, obviously, and Dvorsky had an unbelievable rookie season down in the American League. Like the numbers he put up in the American League, you just don't see too many 19-year-olds do that.
You don't even see too many 19-year-olds there.
No, exactly.
Canadians can't do it.
They can't play at 19. Yeah.
So,
I mean, and there's other, players that are going to, you have one Swede over here, another Swede is going to be coming over, the defenseman Lindstein. So it's just going to be, I'm eager to see what this next group of players, you can't expect them to be Oshie and Perron and Pietrangelo and all these guys, but who's to say they won't be?
Who's to say they won't be? I mean, they're high draft rate. But I think, if you're thinking about what we're going to think, in years hence, looking back, that will start with, Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors, some of the guys that are already here,
Holloway,
Broberg, Holloway, those young guys, and then it'll be, those will be the Perron, Oshie, the earlier players, but then now adding Snuggerud, transition was mind-boggling, really. And Dvorsky and Lindstein and Juracek, and these are the Perkacek, whose guy's name I can never get right. I mean, you get guys
Karsak.
And you can't say not everybody's going to turn out, but. And some may take longer than others. You got to remember, I mean, Dvorsky's younger. He's younger than Snuggerud.
Yeah.
Right? Snuggerud's farther. But, I hope we look back and say, boy, that was quite an age for bringing, prospects onto the Blues team.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And I want to ask you before I let you go, though, how much do you appreciate the Nathan Walkers of the world and those type of players, Tom? Because I know you love the game and everything, but like it takes a team, right? And those guys, I feel like those type of players are really appreciated here in St. Louis and they get a lot of attention. Maybe not even as much as they probably deserve, but he got a lot of attention the second half because he was playing so well and he deserved it. But like those type of players have to be getting your attention as well.
I was thinking one day, Doug made some comment about this in an interview once, but if somebody analyzed conversations between Doug and me, and you figure out the time that was devoted to fourth line players, it would be disproportionate because I do. And he does appreciate the importance of, what a line like that can do. And, and I think those guys showed that this year. I mean, that Walker, as a player, as just the toughness, the moxie, the kind of realization of what stage of the game, what the timing, when you do something, when you don't, he's just... such a spark plug, and the guys love him, and that pushes everybody else forward.
And his whole story is amazing.
Yeah, and Foxa was, and Sonny. All those kind of players. They're not going to be in the Hall of Fame, but they just add so much to a team.
Could be in the Blues Hall of Fame though one day. You never know. That was a great decision to do that too, right? That's been a success.
It's been great. And I'll say that really kind of pushed up organically, I think, from, Mike Caruso and Danny O'Neill and others have been Bruce Affleck. That really came up that way. And I think it's a great date, on the calendar. And it's a great way to get, what a franchise is a lot of it is the collection of, players, coaches that have come before.
Yeah.
Their legacy, and you want to honor that and stay connected to it. So
yeah,
it's a good way of doing it.
What's on tap for the summer now? You get some time to relax. You heading up to Montana? It's not hunting season, so I don't know.
No, there's nothing to hunt in the summer. Although I might do a little more turkey hunting in Kansas starting tomorrow. But, I'll be here through, largely here through draft and trade deadline.
So free agency,
yeah. Trade deadline, free agency. I mean, and then I'll go to Montana for a bit.
Okay.
And then,
all right. Always appreciate it.
But I will say Montana is in part another place that you open your computer and do things on email. So
exactly. It's just an office.
It doesn't really go.
It's an office in another state.
But it's cooler weather.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We could all take that too. So, all right. Thanks for doing this, Tom. I appreciate it. And congrats on a great year and looking forward to next year too. It's going to be a lot of fun these next handful of years. So
great. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Andy, enjoyed it.
All right. Back here in Hockey Sense, Jamal Mayers in the Hizzy, Dobbs Tires and Auto Centers, and the Bartolino's family of restaurants. There's 5 of them here throughout the St. Louis area.
You're looking lean. What's going on?
Am I?
I've been working out?
A little bit.
He's got a gym in the house or what?
It's the summer.
Are you guys at Lifetime members?
No. Well, we were Creve Coeur Racket Club. That changed in Lifetime. But we are not going back, I don't believe.
Okay, I got to talk about that off air.
Yeah, because I've got some... I thought it would give you a lifetime membership at the other Lifetimes, and it doesn't.
They're completely separate?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, and I don't even know what the situation is, like what you're getting out of that. It's basically Creve Coeur Racket Club, but it's called Lifetime, but it costs more.
Perfect.
Nothing's new, really. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I was like, oh,
they still charging you for refills?
I'll pay for, I'll pay for more. I'll pay more. That means I can just go to the other Lifetimes too, but you can't even do that. So why wouldn't you just go sign up at the other Lifetime?
Craziness.
And where you get like all of that and much, much more.
Right.
I like supporting local ownership. They were great people, the Apt Heads, all those people.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
We had a wonderful time. All the kids learn how to swim there. The swim program's perfect. Unbelievable activity. Nice and early. Gets them up and at them. Yeah. They do a great job there. We had a ton of family fun there as well.
Oh, yeah. No doubt. All right. Well, let's talk some Toronto Maple Leafs here, Jamal. Although, can I just say this? And I know the media gets very emotional, and it is what it is. It's like the Dallas Cowboys, like the New York Yankees, and a lot of that I appreciate. I love that about the NHL, that you have a team that can generate so much reaction. But I do want to remind people, and I think the game is tonight, correct? I mean, there's no 2 days between games from this one. I never look at what the games are each night because I'm so focused on last night's games. But yeah, Toronto and Florida tonight. Game 6, back in Florida. They're writing the eulogy already. What happens if Toronto wins tonight and forces a Game 7? Are you just automatically changing the script and they're back and they got to keep Marner? What if Marner has a great game tonight? I'm not saying that's going to happen. I wouldn't put my money on it. And you're just reacting based off of what you saw in the previous game and what you seen over all these years. But it's like you still have another game to play. And I don't give Toronto a ton of hope in tonight's game. But I'm curious your thoughts on it.
I'm very concerned for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Mm-hmm. I'll be honest with you. Teams get beat bad in playoff games, and I always am a proponent that momentum doesn't carry over from game to game in the playoffs. As you know, teams have lost by considerable margins and then come back and win the next game. Mm-hmm. This felt different because they got beat so bad on home ice in Game 5.
No life. It's how they lost.
It's the lack of response and pushback and bite. Go down fighting. Not figuratively, not literally, and sometimes literally, they did not.
Let me say this.
They did not push back.
No.
And that, to me, is the most concerning thing that tells you, in my mind, that regardless of Matthews is hurt, and I hope that something comes out that he's been playing through a ton, and I know he did all season, the makeup of this group is not okay.
Yeah. And I will say, whenever the Stars of Toronto aren't producing, it's always about injury. They must be hurt. Listen, Matthew Tkachuk can hardly even get around the ice right now. This guy is probably at 60%. Okay. Yeah. And no one's talking about him being hurt because other players are stepping up. They've never had the supporting cast there in Toronto to play playoff hockey. You thought this year the defense was going to be different with the addition of Tanev. He's the only one who's got warrior-like qualities that's on that team. He's probably like, where is everybody else? You know, he does lay it on the line. He's taking a bunch of hits. He's delivering some hits. He's blocking shots. But the other players around that team, and typically in the playoffs, as you know, Jamal, it's like it's not always about your superstars, right?
No, you're right. And I think that, and that's one of the things I'll talk about at Hockey Night in Canada tonight, is that the bottom six for the Leafs has been.
Look at who scored all the goals.
They only have 2 goals from the bottom 6, and both of them are from Domi.
Look who scored all the goals for Florida in Game 5. I mean, a bunch of guys scoring their first ever goal of this playoff. Some of them, the first ever playoff goal in their career.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't, Bennett and Reinhart and Barkov and Tkachuk scoring all the goals.
Right.
So, but when Tkachuk goes down, who steps up? It's Bennett. It's other players that step up, kind of fill that void.
Yep.
You look at what Brad Marchand, I mean, if there was ever a perfect fit for his personality in terms of how he fits in with that team, I mean, it's unbelievable.
And what he's done with Listerainen, and I forget their other line mate, but really empowered them and given them that swagger to make plays and be confident and contribute. And I think that is contagious. His attitude is contagious. Shocked that no one tried to challenge him. He was just embarrassing them, right?
So
on home ice.
So being around Chief all these years, I knew his opinion, or had a feeling of what his opinion probably was on Toronto before he took the job over the course of the last few years. Just lots of hot stove sessions, talking hockey and whatever. You kind of, he's a guy that loves to talk hockey. I feel like what he's seeing from Toronto now, it confirmed everything he already knew about this team.
He's a pretty good poker player, but you could see he couldn't help his reaction in some of the moments on the bench where he was despondent and couldn't comprehend how the lack of response continued to happen.
They didn't even play.
He was just looking around going,
what is going on? And they got so excited. And I know people say it in a joking manner, but it was almost like pump the brakes when they went up 2-0. They hadn't even taken the series back to Florida yet. You're talking about the defending Stanley Cup champion who's been to the Stanley Cup final 2 years in a row. They haven't even had a home game yet. And they're up 2-0. And, those were close games. Those were 1-goal games. Florida was right in those games. They could have won those games. It wasn't like they were dominated. And I just don't think they kind of handled that with like in a business-like manner. And maybe they did internally. But everybody else surrounding Toronto, and it's so loud, there's so much noise, there was a sense of celebration just because they hadn't been there, that then they got punched in the mouth, obviously, with the 2 home games. The end of the Game 4 with Domi hitting Barkov, what did that do to Florida, you think, of him doing that at the end of the game? Did that poke the bear a little bit to be like, okay, we just tied the series, now we're just going to step on their throat, and we're just going to,
Yes and no, because if you think back to the beginning of Game 5, Nylander had a breakaway early on. He scores there. The game could be different.
Yeah.
And I think that what we haven't talked about is how Bob looked average in Game 1 and 2, and then he's been lights out, obviously, like lights out.
Lights out.
And so clearly outplaying whoever's in the net at the other end.
And Joseph Woll played great in Game 4, right?
Yeah, he was not good in game. I did not like the...
it was a missed opportunity for Toronto to take advantage of that performance.
I didn't like the 77
Mikkola
goal.
No. Well, he didn't play good.
It was a fluke. Yeah, it was not.
And he got chased, obviously.
That was not good.
And I'm sure part of that reasoning was, hey, we're just not going to leave this guy in there.
No, yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And the team was not competing.
So I feel bad for Joseph that this is a great opportunity for him. But, it just kind of confirms everything you kind of already knew about Toronto. Mitch Marner, if you're a team right now who is eyeing him as a potential free agent, I mean, he's going to command $13 million a year, Jamal, and he's a 100-point player. He is a great player. Like, I don't just hate on Mitch Marner, although his turnover that he had on the half wall, I'm sure just drove Chief absolutely crazy. A backhand spinorama in the Stanley Cup playoffs against the Florida Panthers
cross ice
in a tied series.
Standing still.
What are you doing? And then they come down and score, right? I mean, that play will be shown over and over and over and over again. So how do you view him heading into the summer?
How I view him is this. If insulated, meaning surrounded by players not like him, he's going to thrive. He is still going to win. Think about, this is a good example that you can remember, and maybe some of the fans do or don't remember. There was a lot of people that did not like the way Corey Stillman played.
Here.
That guy went on to win Stanley Cups.
Scoring huge goals.
Yes. But because he was in the right seat, he had success.
The right role, the right guys above him, the right guys under him.
Yeah. So I view it very similarly.
Even though he probably wasn't a player to the skill level.
Not the level of Marner. But Marner, to me,
very
can't
good
be the
NHL
driver.
player, yeah.
He has to be the second tier. He has to be the second. Doesn't mean he's second line. It means he's not one of the two drivers.
Why does Nylander always tend to show up in the play? I love this guy.
Nylander has ice in his veins.
Yeah, nothing bothers him.
Nothing bothers him. He's super competitive. He's combative.
Did you know his dad? You ever played with his dad?
Never played with him, but he's got that hardness in him where you're not going to break him. You're not going to, he owns his confidence. I've always been jealous of those guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Who else did you see that from? The Ronix of the world.
Painter, Taser, Jumbo, Iggy. Like never
Niedermeyer.
Never wavered. Like could not score for 8 games and be like, there's 2 minutes left. Like, do you want to end this game?
Yeah,
like,
you're talking just forwards, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And of course, Prongs is certainly one of those guys who, at least outwardly, you never saw him doubt himself. Those guys, it really made me learn, like, wow, they own their confidence. Coaches ride the wave of wins and losses.
Yeah.
The great players, they just stay right there.
And
it doesn't bother them.
Yeah, we've seen that from Mikko Rantanen here this playoff, although not as much last night. Do you change your opinion on where that series is headed with Winnipeg winning a home game? I know the stats show that Hellebuck had the shutout, and he made some good saves in that game, no doubt.
He was much better.
22 shots. They only had like 10, maybe 11 shots at the most after 2 periods. So he didn't see a ton of action. And that's one thing Winnipeg can do. They can suffocate you, but you still see Dallas taking this series on home ice now?
I think there's going to be a Game 7.
Okay.
I do.
Wow.
I think a team that,
and Dallas is a team that's never been able to, just get it done when it matters the most. They always get to the line. Can they get over the line,
You know what scares me about them is you start to realize how much depth they have. Like, no offense, like they're doing this. I'm sorry, Robertson hasn't done anything.
And he's coming back from injury too, but this has been going on
like
the last little while, though.
7 games.
Even before that, in regular season. This wasn't the player that we saw from him maybe 2 years ago,
You look at him, you look at Ben, you look at 91, you look at up and down that they haven't.
No, their offense is driven by Hintz.
Yes.
It's driven by Johnston. It's driven by Rantanen.
Yes.
And that's the new wave, and that's okay. Like, Ben and Sagan are not driving the bus anymore. But
I'm saying it's going to be scary if those guys step up. Duchesne, like he's usually a good playoff guy.
I know.
Like that to me is scary. If those guys show up in Game 6 and 7, like Stars are going to win.
Yeah. Okay.
I just think they have
So
more
you're
depth.
putting it on those guys. Hey, those guys.
Those
guys need to.
I think they have to step up because the other guys are doing what they can, and the depth is there, but it's not producing.
Yeah.
And I don't think the Jets have as much depth. So it'll be interesting. I think Hellebuck's going to play well in Game 6.
Yeah. Okay. And I hope he does for Winnipeg's sake. Real quick, Carolina. Are they?
I got them I had them in the conference.
Can they win this whole thing?
Yes. Yep.
Who are they? What are they?
They're a detailed, hardworking, don't get enough credit for the skill that they have up front. They play a connected, relentless type of game. Yeah, they're about volume. Yeah, that's what.
Can you tell the difference between their first line and their fourth line and their second line?
Oh yeah, they've got high.
No, I know they do, but they all work so damn hard.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean?
There's never.
They all kind of play similar.
They're all on the same page.
Yeah,
about how they have to play.
And their D too. They are just a team. They are the definition of a team.
Yeah, they're in a model of their coach. So it's.
But I love this
cool.
Svechnikov. I know that people say they don't have stars and whatever, but he's a star.
Yeah, and Aho.
Aho's a star.
Yeah. And that Blake kid's coming up.
Yeah, he is.
He looks good.
Jackson Blake. His dad was good, huh?
Yeah, he was an interesting guy.
Would you guys get into it a little bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We had him on the podcast. It was a great conversation. It's funny because he kept talking about his kid Jackson. He was in high school at the time. And now he's in the NHL a few years.
It's crazy. I saw him last summer, and he's like, "Yeah, I don't know if he's going to make it."
That's how he was when he was on with us.
He's pretty good. He had a good year in North Dakota.
I find all the NHL guys I talk to when I talk to them about their kids, it's funny. If I talk to a guy who didn't play in the NHL, who's just like a hockey dad, he's like, "Oh, he's unbelievable. He's incredible. This guy is he's the best player on the ice." You talk to an NHL guy, and they'll be like, "I don't know. He's okay. He's just,
Yeah, exactly.
He's doing okay.
True. He's all right.
He's doing okay.
He's got to work on this.
He's got to work on some things, So it's really funny to get the different perspective. And that's how he was when he came on. Like he did not pump him up to the level that he was going to be a high NHL pick, go to North Dakota, have a great year, be a Hobey Baker finalist, and then be in the NHL a couple years later, which is exactly what he did.
Yeah.
So,
well, he knows how to motivate.
Oh yeah.
He was a smaller guy that certainly squeezed all the juice out of his ability.
Edmonton is his third year.
Yes.
They're back in the final.
Yes.
It's funny because I was talking to Army last week. He was on Hockey Sense, and we had great numbers last week, man. We appreciate everyone who's tuning in to Hockey Sense each and every week here live from Half Coast Studios. But he's like, everyone's critical of what they did in the offseason because they lost Broberg and Holloway. And listen, obviously those two players had great seasons in St. Louis, but he's like, they're in the Final Four.
You know what I've been amazed at?
And now they're
bottom six. Everyone, like you're saying, was questioning where it's going to come from. It's been unbelievable. Yeah. What's genius is that I think we talked about this before, is a lot of teams may trend and do this, is like finding older guys that were top six.
Yes.
That are willing, have a little bit of bite to the game, and are willing, and are willing to take Arvidsson, are willing to take a role, and accept the role
to win now.
Yeah,
versus
pretty cool.
Just building with young kids to try to win in the future. So looking forward to the conference finals and everything that comes with it, and the continuation and the finish of the second round. Man, it's been a great Stanley Cup play.
Oh, it's fun.
It's been awesome. Real quick, anything about Tom Stillman you want to say in terms of what he's been able to do as owner and where the Blues are headed? Do you think that, in terms of how this past season went, how do you look at this past season?
As a success.
Yeah.
I think that, I think what's brilliant about him, in my opinion, is putting people in the right seats and letting them do their job, and
so important,
and trusting people and having a vision for what it looks like in the next 5 to 7 years, and not resting on the laurels of 2019 has been a difficult thing to do, but a lot of teams tend to do that so that you can ensure that the team continues to maintain the championship level.
Stay competitive, for sure. All right, Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, anytime you need new tires, Dobbs is the place to go, and
the only place to go.
Absolutely. Well, they have like 45 locations, family owned, been around for years now, and it's just amazing people, and that's what I really love about their company, is that they're locally owned, family owned, and anytime you need anything, they're there, and you call them up. Doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, they will get your car in, up, fixed, and out the same day. Any kind of tire, great deals. They don't mess around.
All right. What's for dinner tonight?
Bartolino's, 5 restaurants, great family, 50 years in business. Bartolino's has a new one, Osteria. They're redesigning and reconfiguring their other location, always advancing and moving things forward. I know you had a family dinner there at the
That's
new
right.
place.
What's your go-to?
Probably chicken parm or some kind of veal dish.
Okay. So get
But
that.
I'm not eating pasta right now.
Really?
I'm on like keto. So
Laurie made lentil
Not
pasta
easy.
the other day.
Oh, nice.
And it tasted like lentil pasta.
Ouch.
Although it was good, the kids
Oh, yeah,
they
that's recovery.
didn't know the difference, I don't think. So you can always sneak that in too.
That's good.
So yeah, enjoy your dinner this weekend, man. Bartolino's, stop on by one of the 5 locations.
Absolutely.
Find the one that's nearest you and tell them we sent you in there. Jammer, thanks as always, man.
Thanks, bud.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, I hope you enjoyed Hockey Sense. This edition, again, Army last week. You can go back and watch last week's episode. The information and the topics we got into with Army will still be good, and they will not expire anytime soon. So if you're a hockey fan or a Blues fan, check that out. Same thing with Tom Stillman, man. We appreciate the Blues chairman for coming in and spending time with us in studio. We love it when Tom comes to visit. Jamal Mayers bringing his insights. We've got Game 6 tonight, Toronto and Florida, so we'll see how that goes. And then obviously we'll break it down for you next week as well. The Chemistry Podcast, we had a new episode up from this past week with Pat Verbeek. Check that out. Great conversation with Pat Verbeek after the hiring of Joel Quenneville. Really happy to see Q back in the National Hockey League where he belongs, behind an NHL bench. Anaheim, listen, they're an up-and-coming team, and now the expectations will be increased. The bar is going to be raised simply by the fact that Joel Quenneville is their head coach, and their young players are expected to take another step. I'm sure they'll attract some free agents as well from having Coach Q in Anaheim. It's a great spot for him, great hire by the Anaheim Ducks. Happy to see the Ducks hire Q, and if you missed that interview with the Cam and Strick podcast, be sure to check that out as well. Blue Note Roofing, again, we talked about that vacation club account. How about Little Blues? Listen, the Blues did us proud, you know that, during the course of this season. Getting to the playoffs. Everyone has had hockey on the brain. So I got to remind you of the Little Blues program. St. Louis Blues offer a low-cost, learn-to-play program. It allows kids to experience hockey for the first time who have not participated in organized hockey in the past. If you're between the ages of 4 and 9, then get involved with Little Blues. I had my son do this, and you should do the same as well. Check it out. Great way to get started in hockey. The helmet, the stick, the pads, everything, including the skates. You get all of it when you sign up for Little Blues. Great introductory program. Do it today with Little Blues. Again, Blue Note Roofing, David Novak, 314-920-5713. Call David today and let him take care of you. If you need new roofing, you want to get that free estimate, have him come out and check it out. He'll talk pucks with you too. Let me know if you reach out to David. We may send you something, an autographed puck or something from one of your favorite hockey players here in St. Louis if you use our friends over there at Blue Note Roofing. Dirt Cheap Fun, Lordo's Diamonds, everybody. Travel House, I got to tell you about Travel House. TravelHaus. And that's where I go to plan my vacations. We got a vacation coming up really soon with our friends over there at Travel House. They have been a resource in the St. Louis area for booking vacations for over 30 years with Travel House, HAUS, award-winning travel agency. They're focused on the client experience, full service for closer to 35 years now, I believe. They offer all destinations, all-inclusive ski trips, beach vacations, mountain getaways, whatever you're looking for. Well-traveled, knowledgeable, friendly staff. Give them a call today, 314-842-6000. Travelhouse.com. Give them a call today. I got to tell you about this, though. With Apple Vacations, this is for my girl Sandy, passing along all this information. If you're looking to book a summer vacation, this is exactly what you're looking for, okay? A couple of things that I want to pass along. STL, St. Louis, nonstop flights to Cancun, Mexico, all year long. 4 days a week, nonstop to Punta Cana, Dominican Republic. So if you want to go to Punta Cana, they've got 4 days a week, nonstop flights out of St. Louis. For 2026, they're going to fly nonstop on Saturdays on Alaska Air to Puerto Vallarta. That's between the dates of January and April. So they're super excited to offer this destination. Best sunsets, some great excursions, all from St. Louis. We love that from our friends over here with the with Travel House. So again, check it out, travelhouse.com. You can call Gail over there and get all the information you need and book that next family vacation and create some memories. All right, this has been Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. For Tom Stillman, for Jamal Mayers, I'm Andy Strickland, reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. Next Friday, every Friday, we bring you Hockey Sense. Have a great weekend, everybody.